Matt Hall, I'm co-organiser of tonight's Meetup. Thanks again everybody for coming. We're going to be pretty choppy. We're going to spend about 40 minutes giving you some insights into the state of health startup as we see it. Just a few quick thank yous. We first of all want to say thank you to all the people at the York Butter Factory. This is a fantastic place. I mean, amazing for a meeting like this. We're a little bit cramped because everyone turned up, which is great. Secondly, the man with the clapperboard, Kussowski Brothers, is a well-known figure of the startup scene here. He's going to be YouTubing this later, so please, no abuse. And a shameless plug for my company, the Australian Consulting Group. That'll do. And one of our speakers tonight, Simon Carter, is also a data mystic and runs Manage BGL. So tonight we are going to have three people talking to you. Chris Kamatis, who you've all had an email from, I'm sure, in the past week or so. Multiple. He's going to talk to us a little bit more about the need behind StartUp Healthtech. And then after that we're going to slide straight on to Simon, who's going to talk about some cool stuff in the diabetic market. And then after that we've got Buzz Palmer. And he is the CEO of STC, and he's going to give his insight into things. Without further ado, better hand over to Chris.
Well, yes, I'd like to echo what Matt had said. Thank you so much for coming. This is kind of a realization of something we've been working on for about 6 months. You might be saying, what is this non-Australian doing up here, creating an ecosystem in Australia around digital health? But I'll have my disclosure. I am a New Yorker who's been in Australia for 4 years now. I have a history in pharmaceuticals, big pharmaceuticals and medical devices that has brought me to from New York to London and now to Australia. And really the impetus of this is right here. It's all of you that are here tonight. I've started probably about 6 months ago my own digital startup and started going to these technology conferences and meeting all of you or many of you at those conferences and talking about digital health and how it was fragmented. It was a bit disjointed. We didn't know how to come together. There were some companies that were helping us. There were accelerators and incubators that are out there, but then there was us that didn't know how to get in, or we were very, very early, maybe pre-seed stage, and we kind of said, well, how can we come together as a group? And I met Matt at one of these meetings, and we said, let's do it. Let's put it together. Let's put, number one, our company, Australian Consulting Group, but then also let's put together StartUp Healthtech and see the response. And again, the proof is in the pudding. In all of you being here tonight, I think I have a few. No, wasn't it? I'm trying to be too fancy here. You know, in terms of the mission is just to build a sustainable digital health ecosystem. And I think you're all looking at it and saying, well, what's digital health? Well, it's analog health as well. It doesn't have to be online. You know, it could be anything, but it's just getting the right people in the right room and understanding the differences between kind of startup in the technology space and startup in the healthcare space, and getting the right people within the groups and really kind of just banging it together and coming out with some solutions. And I'll give you my disclosure. You know, and again, why? It's because we want to support all of you. You know, my motive is to build something. I've always wanted to build organizations. I've wanted to build companies. I've been part of startups in the US in pharmaceuticals. I was in product development, in medical technology, and I've always said I'd love to be part of something where we start from the ground up and we grow. So that's the reason why I'm a part of it, and I'd like all of you to kind of hopefully share with us as we go through this journey together why you want to be part of it and what's important to you. What's important is also getting the right stakeholders, and I think we've got some of those in the room today. As I look through the attendee list, we have clinicians, we have technologists, we have entrepreneurs here tonight, we have people from regulatory affairs, government affairs, we have people from hospitals, from health plans. We've kind of ticked a lot of the boxes that are going to be necessary to create a sustainable ecosystem, and it's just up to us to take it from tonight, and hopefully a lot of these interactions that you're having and engagements that you have after this meeting will result in some actionable opportunities that we all have. And again, as As Matt said, couldn't have been done tonight without the help of the York Butter Factory. So we thank Stuart, Jason, Sam, who is an ex-community manager here. I think you're still part of the York Butter Factory as well, and it has its own digital startup to boot. Again, and thank everyone for their support. Lucas behind the camera, and again, we look forward to actually working with many of you and your organizations moving forward. I talked a little bit about the key stakeholders. Just finish that. The key stakeholders, we need to get more of them involved. We need more clinicians. I just read something online about clinician engagement or clinician innovator engagement within groups like this. So the clinicians in the room, I encourage you to talk to your colleagues, to get involved. We cannot be fragmented. We need to come together and work collaboratively as a group, and we won't have success unless we all come together and agree from a commercial and from a clinical perspective what that new paradigm looks like in healthcare. And I'll just leave you with this. This is my vision, a sustainable digital ecosystem to address the new health paradigm. I think we're not approaching, we're within this new paradigm of healthcare. The aging population, which I've recently worked in colorectal cancer, bladder cancer, and see what it's going to be looking like in the future in terms of cost to government, not only here but globally, if we don't actually take up the challenge and combine our forces, technology, healthcare, and come up with some sustainable solutions. So I hope many of you get a lot out of tonight. I can just plug that we actually have our next meeting already planned, October 24th, here at the York Butter Factory as well. So I hope I can speak to some of you tonight, and you can have some great speakers, some great ideas. At the end of the night, we'll have a couple of whiteboards in the back that you can write your topics, ideas that you have, maybe some topics you'd like to see, speakers you'd like to hear from these groups. We'll do it online as well. But if I have a chance to speak to all of you today, I hope I do. And if not, I hope we'll meet you at the next meeting. So thank you very much all for coming, and I'll welcome Matt back up to get our first speaker on. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so Simon, it's great that we've got two people here that are on crutches. You thought you were committed by getting a parking space. That's nothing. So Simon's our next speaker now. We talked about the karma keg earlier, obviously the most important thing in the night. The funds from this mysterious karma keg are going to go to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, which is Chris's chosen charity as he's doing the speaker. Sorry, not Chris, Simon. Any speakers that we have that want to come along and do a talk, you'll be able to choose a charity that you feel fit, and the donation will go to that. So, without further ado, cast your gaze in that direction because he's got a really hurty foot. Simon Carter, here you go.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Just give Matt a chance to swap over. I'll just move that, or else I'm going to spill at some point. Okay, yeah, I'm Simon. I run a company called Manage BGL, and I'm new to the healthcare space, so the TGA and regulation compliance are all completely new to me. Matt, can you do the next one, please? So what I want to talk about is the journey that my company has followed so far. First in my background, then the 4 C's that I've sort of tried to wiggle into being 4 C's and not 4 something else. There's connections, which is why we're all here tonight. The contributions you're making, the contacts you have, and credibility. How do you get that? Also, the experiences we've had getting into the health tech startup world, the accomplishments that we've had to date, challenges, and also for the future. So, Matt, the next one. Can I have my notes from over there behind that laptop on that stand? Okay. So, firstly, a warning before we go any further. This place, don't visit. Serious stuff happens there. Might cost you $9 to get in, but you walk out paying $5,000. So do not go there. Okay, next one, Matt. Right arrow. Yep, okay. So I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I have been for 24 years. My daughter also was unfortunate enough to get type 1 diabetes, and she's 8. She got it when she was 2, which was a bit of a shock. I got it when I was 16. Now, the treatment for diabetes is multiple injections per day, as most of you would be aware. The gold standard for diabetes treatment is an insulin pump, which is the device on the left. The thing just to the right of it is not the line that goes into you, that's a separate device. But essentially there's a line which delivers insulin into your body, and that stays in your body for 3 to 5 days. The alternative is what's on the right-hand side, so thousands of injections. Thanks, Matt. So both my daughter and myself have used insulin pumps in the past, and we both now no longer use them. A pump is a pretty expensive proposition for most people. It's $8,000 up front, $5,000 to $8,000, about $1,000 a year worth of consumables. And if you also use another device called a continuous glucose monitoring system, which measures your blood sugar every 5 minutes, that's another $5,000 on top of that. But what we wanted to do is to give people the same tools as a pump without people actually being on a pump, because there are reasons why you wouldn't want to be in a pump. There's only 1 or 2 clinically prominent reasons why you actually need to be on one, as opposed to wanting to be on one, which are quite different. So having this experience with actually being on a pump and also being on multiple daily injections, I felt that the pump was massive overkill for me, and that I should be able to do just as well if I had a device that was on me that could calculate in the same way as an insulin pump. So that's what I set about doing. So my background is in big data, warehouses, data mining, analytics, and I run another software company. So all the right pieces of the puzzle were there, so I had a personal connection to the problem I was trying to solve. So the next thing that we established, who are the people that care about this system? And I, particularly being a parent of a diabetic, it was very important to me to know that my daughter was being looked after well at school. At school you have an action plan which specifies what needs to happen in certain circumstances. Those action plans aren't always followed. And the key problem areas are people like sports teachers or music teachers who only have your child for a very short period of time, but they're expected to have the same degree of knowledge as their homeroom teacher who has them for most hours of the day. So these people they can't get enough information into them, it's just not possible. So we wanted a system that would give them advice that was concrete and told them exactly what to do in every circumstance, not just something like low blood sugar and then leave them with a question mark of what to do next. So an action plan tries to cover those bases, but an action plan can never take into account the amount of insulin that's actually in a person's system. So for 3 to 5 hours after you inject, the insulin hangs around, it gradually fades away. But if you make the wrong decision when it's still in there, then that has ramifications later on in the day. So you might get low later on or other implications. Okay, and also with these teachers, particularly the sports teachers, very low contact time, very high risk activity. So for a diabetic, sport's probably the worst activity they could be doing where the teacher couldn't care less about it, and that's the situation that we had at school. So we also have these paper logbooks where the teachers would write down what they did, what the blood tests were, what their response was. They often got filled in at the end of the day, not at the time. The timings were wrong. If they called us up in the middle of the day, said, "Oh, Lucy is high," that's my daughter, and I'd say, "Well, what's happened before this?" And they'd read off a string of numbers, and I'd be in the car going, "I can't make head or tail of this." So we wanted a system that would log everything centrally, where we could see it wherever we were, whether it's PC or mobile or wherever. So all these things are little touch points we wanted to cover. Okay, so that covers the parent screw. Obviously the people with diabetes have a care factor about this. We're saving them $8,000. That's not going to be good. Thank you. Schools, obviously, they have a duty of care to fulfil to their students. A lot of the time, especially in the independent school system, they choose not to, and they have to be pulled into line. And it takes a ministerial order to actually get them to have the same standard of care as a public school, which is somewhat surprising. So, doctors, of course, want the best care for their patients. So they have more and more patients over time, and it's harder and harder to deliver services to them. Doctors in remote areas have regional overload, too many patients, not enough time, too many different things to be across. They can't be across diabetes as well as a doctor who's a specialist in the city. There's also this problem of teenagers leave parental care. So at the age of about 16, they decide they know that they're an adult, they don't want to see a doctor anymore, and they go till about the age of 26 before they decide they need to do something about their diabetes again. So we needed something that was going to stay in tune with them, like they all carry mobile phones. So we've got a point system which gives them points and it rewards them for doing the right thing. And their parents can also see what they're doing without nagging them, which is really important, especially for those teenage years. Not that I have a teenager, but I will soon. And the other thing is, how do we deliver best practice in the 6 months between visits? So these people leave the doctor and they might forget what the doctor said, increase the insulin ratio in the morning to this. 6 months later they come back, doctor says, "How'd you go?" "Oh, I forgot about that." Okay, well with this system the doctor can actually change their doses remotely. You might see it as a security risk, but that's looking at it from a clinical point of view. From a patient point of view or a patient perspective, it's really important to have close that loop. Then we've got the carers, so like grandparents, sleepovers. You try and give a person an entire lifetime of information about diabetes to look after your child for one night. It really restricts the number of people who can actually look after your child. So with this system, we can see what they're doing, we can tell them if they've missed something or done something wrong, and it makes it a lot easier for us as well to hand over our daughter. Then we have hospitals and nursing homes. Imagine if we had more than one diabetic patient in a ward, there's problems with insulin being mixed up, wrong doses, wrong people, wrong beds, and these are problems that do occur quite often. Yeah, let's make sure I've got the right ones. Okay, so next slide, thanks, Matt. Okay, so managed BGL is a system that works the same as an insulin pump. It's locked, so I can't see how much time I've got left, so can I take another 10? Okay, so we take blood sugars, we take carbohydrates and insulin in exactly the same way as an insulin pump. We predict low blood sugar levels ahead of time. So if people are driving, we can say in 3 hours' time you might be low, so that's a big risk factor for them. We share the data live so anyone can see it, not anyone, people you share it with can see it. There's a dose calculator, the same as a pump, online food database so people can look up unknown foods. A coach, so that if there's a problem today, they can fix it tomorrow rather than in 6 months' time. We cover all these different devices, and obviously we're saving $8,000, which is a pretty big ticket item. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so this is some of the screens of the system. So the top graph shows blood sugar levels, and what we do, which is fairly unique, is we fill in the blanks between blood sugars. So a typical diabetic who has good control does 4 to 6 blood tests a day, but in between they've got no idea what actually happens. And it depends on what food they eat, what insulin type they're on, what dose they have, and all these factors get taken into account in the same way that a pump does, but we use that to predict where the blood sugars are going. So this is an actual result. I think it's my daughter's. You'll see that there are some figures that are out. So where there's a gap between the predictions, which are the orange lines, there's a blue rectangle, and that says this area is for attention. And when you click on that, it shows you what the differences might be caused by, whether it's a ratio that's wrong, too much food, too little insulin, exercise, stress, all these different factors that come into play. So it suggests which dose you need to change and also which way to change it, because the ratios work the opposite way to the way you'd intuitively understand them to go. We also have a point system, point system, so everyone gets points, there's a global leaderboard, and all these usual sort of reporting systems. There's also, on the left, there's a big series of blood tests which have to be done every 6 months, so checking for, looking for eye problems and nerve problems, kidney problems, a whole stack of different problems. We're trying to detect them early, so we encourage people who perhaps don't like seeing their doctor, particularly those in regional areas who don't have good access to one. These are the tests they have to do. We give them like 1,000 points for seeing an endocrinologist, 300 points for doing a dietitian, and so on. So they can see what care we require of them. Like as a doctor, we try and give them best practice by saying, these are the things that a doctor would do. If you choose to do it for yourself, great, do it yourself and make sure you do it. Because if we can pick up an eye problem early on, then we can do something to slow it down or to stop that degradation. And blindness is one of the key negative outcomes of diabetes, amputation blindness. Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, so for in-care use, and also I have a similar sort of system for my daughter at school and myself, so my wife can see my daughter and me. So there's all these faces and there's bed numbers, so you can see which patients are where. You can verify visually that's the right patient you're giving the dose to. And we're also building a system where you can have a family view that shows the person's face on the left and their current charts on the right. So you can look, I've got an unfortunate family that has 3 diabetic children, and unfortunate in a sense that you would never wish it on them, but with a tool like this, they can look at all 3 children's results and see where all of them are at any one point in time, no matter where they are, and figure out if a grandparent needs to be called or a friend or whatever. So the live sharing allows you to do everything on the same page, no matter which device or where they are. As I said before, doctors can do remote consulting, inpatient care, have this dashboard style approach, and this correct dose is really important. Okay, yeah, thanks, Matt. Okay, so some of our accomplishments. We recently won selection to attend a diabetes congress in Stanford. It's in November, so doing lots of pitch practice for that. Like tonight's a pitch practice. So we presented at the Sydney Diabetes Conference recently. We've just been selected into the SLP program, StartUp Leadership in Melbourne. So it's a 19-hour workshop, which will be really good. So 80-hour, 19-session workshop. The uptake rate of this product is increasing slightly, but 800 people worldwide using it, and as we win more and more things, that rate increases. So yeah, as I said, 800 worldwide. Next, Matt. So the challenges we have, doctors are very hard to get to try a new thing. They're very risk averse, clearly. They need to be. They won't promote anything without evidence, so TGA compliance and a clinical trial or pilot study of some sort are absolute prerequisites. So we're looking for a pilot study to get us further, and that's very long-winded and expensive. So we're looking for partners for that sort of thing. In terms of patients are very easy to access by comparison by Facebook or Twitter chats, LinkedIn and online forums. They're easy to access, but they're hard to convince because it's their life they're taking into their hands. They still need that same degree of approval. And many of these groups defer medical advice to healthcare professionals rather than giving it in these channels. Although there are a couple where they'll give medical advice and they'll say your GP was shit, So they'll give advice, but there's very few of those, and you have to seek them out. But the best approach we found is to build credibility in the forums, offer advice, try not to push people too hard, say that this is what we would do, and if you are having problems with this, then this system can show you where you're going wrong, and that's helped to build up our user base. So we've been identifying key bloggers, and there's hundreds of diabetes bloggers. Seems every person who gets diagnosed decides they're going to become a blogger. So yes, lots of product evangelists in the works there. And then pharmaceuticals, hard to access the key players, especially from Australia. Business development is rarely done over here. The VC funding is a bit too small for most medical devices. So the $20,000 that sort of floats around most of the angel investors, you really need sort of 70 to 100 to make a start, and probably 200 to 250 to get going. So that's been a bit of an issue for us. So the best approach is really to network, and that's what forums like tonight are for. So make sure you do. Thanks, Matt. Got one more, I think. Okay. Sorry, how many? Over. Okay. All right. So yeah. So networking. Make sure you do that tonight. TGA approval is necessary. You need to get that step done, both for people looking at things both here and overseas. People in the US are looking for TGA approval here to make sure that we're certified here, which is interesting. And then we're looking at publishing our own trial, low in credibility, but it looks good. Don't think it will get much mileage, but it's better than nothing. It's cutting out. Strategies for reaching patients and doctors with a few new ideas on how to do that, more like a pyramid marketing scheme. And we're moving from a free to a paid or freemium model. So that's all these things which we have in the works on top of everything else. So it's a tricky thing to try and manage. So, thank you.
Thanks, Simon. We really pushed Simon to cram his entire life and work and passion into that 12 minutes. So he owes you 2 minutes each, by the way, now. Thanks a lot. Now, back to the karma cake, obviously. There's going to be a pot over there near the beer. Now, the catering's been sponsored by the Australian Consulting Group, and we don't want you to give us anything for it, but the JDRF is, I think you'll understand, is a pretty worthy fund. So if you feel like dropping in some coins or some folding, it's up to you. We also got another. Lucas is gonna make a little YouTubey thing for us, and managed to contact Mushroom Records, who have given us rights to use some of their music on that track, or youth sort of stuff. So thanks a lot, Simon. Everybody, chat to him later. Last but not least, we've got Dr. Buzz Palmer. You've had a few foreigners on the stage tonight, and here's another one for you. So Buzz is the CEO of STC. He's going to talk to you about that.
Brilliant, thanks, Matt. Look, I won't take too much of your time. I just want to give you a bit of a background about what we do and a program that we've just launched in the last 4 weeks. So I run a company called STC Australia. We're an incubator. We support young entrepreneurs in the medical technology space. So most of our technologies are medical diagnostics devices or digital health. We're based out in Scoresby, and we're about 32 companies strong. We've got about 10,000 metres squared of manufacturing capability and clean rooms, and about 220 people now in-house. One of the programs we've launched is what's called MedTech's Got Talent. And the idea behind that is, on a regular basis, we get young entrepreneurs coming through STC looking for early stage funding, looking for advice, looking for access to new networks, clinicians, regulatory systems. So we've put together a pilot program, MedTech's Got Talent, which is really designed to allow people to have access to everything we have at STC. The way the program works is there's an executive summary application form. You simply pop it in. 30 people will be chosen to go to a pub somewhere in the city and give a 1-minute pitch. With that pitch, we have 8 mentors in the room, and these mentors are guys that are part of the design house product development companies here in Melbourne. They'll pick 2 mentees and they'll mentor them for 6 weeks. There's a couple of workshops involved in there as well. There's strategic days, chats with the mentors, with business 101, really to try and learn how to think about your business going forward. Some pitching sessions, learning how to pitch, which is critical in this game. And then on the 5th of December, we'll have a formal gala. The 16 people will pitch to 10 judges, and these judges are from the likes of J&J, from Siemens. We've got clinicians on the judging panel as well. And there'll be 5 winners. The 5 winners will get $20,000 in cash, as well as a lot of in-kind contribution from legal firms, from organisations here in Australia and Victoria, as well as strategic days from large industry players to help you guide your way through. With that $20,000, you can do what you want with it. You can spend it on yourself, you can go shopping, or you can put it towards a company. You can put it towards a cash contribution as well for raising capital elsewhere. A lot of the capital that you're looking to gain needs cash contribution. $20,000 will probably get you an extra $50,000, so immediately you've got about $70,000 to play with your company. Then what will happen is you'll kind of develop a business plan, a due diligence, a technology roadmap with your mentors over that period of time. And then in February, we'll actually bring together some of our investor friends into a room and you'll pitch. You'll actually pitch to real investors with the hope that you might get some funding through that direction. So that, in a nutshell, that's it. It's MedTech's Got Talent. You can find all the information on our website, which is stcaustralia.org. I'm around for the rest of the evening, happy to chat about it, and any of the other programs that we run at STC as well. So thanks for the time, and appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Buzz.